let's give this modern fantasy thing a go. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and oh my god, things are getting worse and worse. Welcome to another episode of Amazing Worlds, where today I am going to be discussing the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So here we are. I've got the First Law Trilogy here, just finished reading the last book this week. So First Law Trilogy is composed of book 1, The Blade itself, book number 2, Before They Are Hanged, and book 3, The Last Argument of Kings. This trade paperback edition is quite nice. The books are textured. Covers don't give much away, but there you go, sort of setting the tone a little bit with that splatter of blood on them. And one thing I wasn't very keen on is the lack of maps in the books. Apparently Joe Abercrombie doesn't feel like he really needs them. They're not essential, but I like them. If you've watched any of my earlier videos, I like to get dragged into the world and the setting, and I like to have the maps as reference. However, because of the way that Joe Abercrombie has decided to build his world, they are not really needed, because you can very clearly picture in your head what things may look like. So what we have here is modern fantasy as I understand modern fantasy, and maybe I should make a new video, a whole video myself, discussing the differences, or what I consider to be the differences between classic and modern fantasy. But anyway, here we go, modern fantasy. So world building, I think Joe Abercrombie takes a page, a leaf out of Scott Lynch's book, so to speak, no pun intended, where the world building is kept to a bare minimum, and it's so easily identifiable in our heads to the world we know and medieval Europe that it's very easy to imagine what he's talking about. So when he refers to events in the north and the Northmen, the way he describes characters, you know he's talking about Vikings. And then we have the Union, which is kind of caught in the middle between the north, the Union, which is your medieval Europe type classical fantasy tropey thing, and then there's another warring nation in the south, and the way he describes the characters there, you can imagine some sort of medieval Arabic Muslim / African type of country, as he describes people as having dark skin and all that sort of stuff. So very light world building, very light fantasy elements here. I mean, we are treated to nothing but humans. There is mention, and they make appearance in one of the books, the Shanka. This is the only it's the only concession to fantastical creatures, but they're very much undescribed. They just take part in a battle, and that's it. In my head they look pretty much like your bog standard orcs, but didn't feature very much in the series. There's no big deal about them, they just there as cannon fodder. The other fantastical races there, again, very diluted in the world. So apparently in times past demons were a lot more common in this world, and one of the main characters is a long line descendant from demons, so she's got traces of demon blood which grant her some special abilities and powers, but demons certainly don't feature at all in the book. So it's a very light setting in terms of actual fantasy. Even the magic, which is a very soft magic system, magic seems to almost have disappeared from the world. And even when one of the main characters, Bayaz, the first of the Magi, or the first of the Magi, I suppose, when he appears, people don't even believe that he's a magic user, because magic has been out of the world for so many hundreds of years. So I think that's one of the main characteristics. I think that's one of the main sort of criteria of modern fantasy is that it's actually very, very light in actual fantasy. Very subdued magic, very little fantastical creatures, very little, elements to take you away from the nitty-gritty reality of what the world is. Now, so where is the strength of this series? Where is the strength of this modern fantasy? And the strength is in character. The characters here are very well presented. They are fully realized by the time we are introduced to them. But unlike other fantasy series, and I think this is why Joe Abercrombie is, the guy goes by the name of Lord Grimdark on Twitter, so, I found throughout the series that our main characters don't actually go through a evolution. They're pretty much presented as they are. They go on a physical journey, and pretty much they don't learn anything, they don't change at all, they don't come out any different. But that's intentional. It doesn't make the characters one-dimensional. They actually, some of them struggle, they try to fight against the status quo. It's just, and this is where the sort of grim, gritty darkness of the fantasy setting is, that it squashes them down. They cannot fight and overcome the reality of the world they live in. And it's only the cynical ones that accept things for what they are and try to flow with it rather than to resist it, that actually come out on top. So for instance, we are introduced to Sandan Glokta. He is an inquisitor. He used to be a famous, revered warrior who spent 2 years in prison, being tortured, being mutilated by the southern kingdom, and before he was released back or rescued or ransomed or whatever. And now he's an inquisitor, so he makes a living from doing what was being done to him for years. So Glokta is our cynical, realist, bitter, twisted main character who, doesn't try to change the world, sees the world for how horrible it is, because he is in constant pain all the time, and he's the one that comes out on top at the end. Then we are also introduced to Luther. Is our idealistic, untested knight slash warrior. He is a martial champion but has never actually seen combat. So when he joins Bayaz on a quest, he actually, throughout the series, he's still idealistic. He still tries to make the world a better place. He tries to do the right thing, but constantly he's smashed down by circumstances and by other characters, and doesn't seem to learn anything. He doesn't actually understand the world that he lives in, and he gets constantly beaten up, dragged down. So we got him. Another one of our main characters is Pharaoh Malgin. She is a southerner. She's a black woman descended from demons, who is a fearful, super strong warrior, and she's just bent on revenge. All she wants is revenge. She doesn't trust anyone, she doesn't trust people, she's not interested in building bonds with people, and even when she is given a chance to sort of redeem herself or have a chance at a life with other people, she chooses not to. She's just too bogged down on her quest for revenge. She's too far down that path, and that's all there is to her. Another one of our main characters is Logan Nine Fingers, also called the Bloody Nine. He is a quintessential berserk Viking that goes into bloodthirst during battles, doesn't know friend for foe, and he's bent on killing. He tries to be a better person. He tries to not be that cold-blooded killer that he is, but he just cannot help his nature. Again, he's just another character that tries to be better but constantly fails to do so, and the end of his journey ends where you would expect it to. And then we have Bayaz, the first of the Magi. He's a super powerful wizard. He's this Gandalf-like character who's an instigator for the action. In book 1 he puts together our party to go on a quest. He's the one, he acts as the catalyst for pretty much a lot of the elements of the plot. Book 1, if I just break it down now and talk a little bit about the different books. Book 1 is all about presenting the conflict. It's very much a 3-part act. So presentation, not conclusion. So book 1, there's not a lot of action at all. He's just putting together the party that is going to go on a quest. We see Glokta through the Inquisition. He's sent somewhere to do something, and it's all set up. Book 2 takes us on, we follow the different characters. So we follow our party going on a quest to find, retrieve an ancient powerful relic. Very tropey, but there's a bit of a twist there. We see Glokta trying to defend a city against assault with no chance of achieving to do so, how he deals with that. And we also follow a party of Northmen, so Logan's old friends, who they think that Logan's dead, so they just are trying to fight or prevent the Northmen from attacking the Union because they don't like the new king of the Northmen. And then book 3 is our Resolution. Resolution is very successful. We have a very epic Helm's Deep style final battle in book 3, which is great. And then you realize that you've finished the last battle and there's still about 150 pages or so to go. And those 150 pages are dedicated to putting each one of the main characters in their place, giving them a proper send-off, a proper what happened to them. So one by one, events put Luther, Glokta, Logan and Bayaz in the right place. And here Abercrombie pulls no punches, shows no mercy, is not very nice at all to his characters, but it's done in a way that it does feel really satisfying. It is well done. If you haven't seen my previous video on the Lightbringer series on how not to finish a series and how to do it in a very wimpy way, check it. But here Joe Abercrombie really gloats in dragging our main characters through the mud, so to speak. Although some are rewarded, some are not. He's not totally cruel. He's just that our idealists get beaten down, our cynics understand the world and come on top. It's a slightly dark, grim view of the world, hence I presume why this particular subgenre of fantasy is called grimdark. I would say that 90% of the plot is well crafted, is well developed, is really good. However, there is one section at the beginning of book 3 that I felt disappointed by. I may go into a bit of a spoiler mode here, so maybe you want to skip a little bit. But basically, our quest in book 2 to find this ancient relic goes to pot. It doesn't work. They don't find this ancient relic. They discover the ancient relic is kept somewhere else, but it's hidden. No one can find it. So eventually they go to this place, and Pharaoh, one of our main characters, she sneaks in following Bayaz in search for this ancient relic, and she just finds it. She just picks it up and it's there and she finds it. That's it. And it's like, oh, really? Like, I don't mind the previous quest being unsuccessful. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I don't need to see that fantasy trope fully realized. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay is with someone that doesn't have any agency, some character that really has got no. She's got an involvement, but it's not a great involvement, and it's not a great investment in finding this relic, and that has never seen it before, that has got nothing to do with it. All of a sudden, just picks it up, finds it, and then we go and move on. So that felt a little bit unsatisfying. On the debit side of things, there's a couple of things that I wish had been explored to flesh out the world a little bit more and to give us a better understanding of what's at play in the world of the First Law Trilogy. So for instance, the character of Logan can actually talk to spirits, but we don't know what those spirits are, where they come from, what their purpose is, how they came about. They're just there, and he can just literally, on the fire, talk to spirits, gain knowledge from them, and move on with it. And they're only mentioned a couple of times in the whole trilogy, and that is it. So I wish there had been a little bit more of that going on to give it a more fantastical feel to the whole thing. Because if I'm reading high fantasy, that's what I want. For me, it felt a little bit too much like a historical fiction. Another thing that wasn't that fleshed out either was the idea of these demons. I mean, we are told about and we're introduced to the history of the world and where these demons came from and where the magic comes from and all that sort of stuff, but they only feature in the last book for a little bit. And again, for me, going back to this whole fantastical setting, I wish there had been a little bit more of that happening. But I suppose that's one of the drawbacks of modern fantasy. It's actually very light on the fantasy. I don't know, my opinion. On the plus side, I appreciated for the first time, and I didn't realize how much, the beauty of a soft magic system. You don't need pages and pages of exposition, of explaining to you how the magic works. And I found that really sort of refreshing in a way, because coming from the Lightbringer and coming from the Powder Mage and coming from Mistborn, where you have to explain all these things, here the magic just is and does, because end of story. You don't need to create kind of synthetic scene, a kind of fake scene to shoehorn in an explanation of how the magic system works. I'm hoping here, I just had an idea that maybe in the future any author wanting to come up with a really convoluted, thought out, hard magic system actually explains it in an appendix, how it works, or maybe on a preface to the story, so you already know how the magic works and you can just let the story flow and not have to interrupt it or create these fake introductory scenes of master apprentice rite of initiation that we are so used to with hard magic systems. But anyway, that's just my opinion. And a couple of things where I thought First Law, for me, my particular opinion and taste, could have been tightened and wrapped around a little bit better. Another thing that I quite enjoyed throughout the series is, I think the character of Glokta, the torturing inquisitor, is quite a nice twist in fantasy. It's not at all your classic hero. And the violence of his tortures is very well done in the first couple of books. It's just hinted at. It's a bit like the torture scene in Reservoir Dogs. You don't actually see it, but you know what's going to happen, and it's like, oh, and it's great. Although in book 3 we do get the torture, we do get the violence. There are descriptions there, and I think it's certainly fantasy for a slightly more mature audience, perhaps, I don't know. So, in summary, I think that the First Law Trilogy has been for me a breath of fresh air. It's probably been the fantasy series I have enjoyed the most over the last year of reading that I've been doing. My only issue would be exploring the second series that Joe Abercrombie has written in the same world as the First Law Trilogy, because I don't know for how long, or whether he is actually going to continue this thing of grimdark and in the same world with the same nations, and how far can you push these being mean, nasty and twisty towards your main characters and dragging them through the mud. I don't know. So I'm not entirely sure. I am that curious to straight away jump into the next trilogy set in this world. I think I'm probably going to wait for reviews, maybe wait until the whole series is complete, give it some time, and I want to read something else in the meantime. However, would I recommend First Law Trilogy? Certainly would recommend it, even though it is very, very light in the fantastical elements, but perhaps for people new to the genre, for people that really get a little bit put off by the dragons, orcs, wizards, minotaurs, elves, that kind of thing, I think First Law would be a really, really good entry point into the system. I mean, it could almost be a historical fiction. The fantasy is so light, and the world is so relatable to medieval Europe, Vikings, south of the Mediterranean type warriors thing, that I don't think anyone will have any issues picturing in their heads how the series is set, how it's presented, and what it's trying to achieve. So anyway, that's all I've got today with regards to the First Law Trilogy. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think, share ideas, and even if you press the thumbs down button, let me know why. Until next time, please have fun, take lots of care, now more than ever, and I'll see you next time. Bye.